Again, hi everyone. Welcome to our Ways to Control Your IT Costs in 2017 webinar from the Revolution Group. My name is Molly Darrow, and I'm the Marketing Specialist for the Technology Services Division. For those of you who aren't familiar with Revolution Group, we are a technology consulting firm in Westerville, Ohio, specializing in managed IT services, Salesforce consulting services, and manufacturing ERP services. Our Technology Services Division offers small to medium-sized businesses a full line of managed services from 24/7 help desk support to project work, account management, and virtual CIO expertise. The Salesforce Services Division provides innovative Salesforce CRM consulting, implementation, and integration solutions that enhance sales and elevate customer service to maximize your ROI. Our comprehensive manufacturing ERP consulting services team includes system selection and implementation, optimization, and extended application development for disparate system integrations. A few housekeeping items before we start the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and available on our website, www.revolutiongroup.com. It will also be emailed to you at the completion of this webinar, along with a 2-minute survey letting us know if you enjoyed the webinar and topic. This webinar will be approximately 1 hour in length, and we will be answering questions at the end of each section. Please feel free to submit your questions into the section labeled questions at any time. Now to introduce our Controlling Costs webinar presenter, Gary Dyer. Gary has been in different IT roles for over 17 years, 13 of which have been with Revolution Group. Gary has been involved with our managed IT services team since its inception over 10 years ago, and is an account manager and virtual CIO for many Revolution Group accounts in a wide range of industries. So Gary?
Thanks, Molly. Welcome, and thanks today for joining us. We'll be looking at how we can control costs in 2017. We'll identify what things you can do that are immediate changes and things that can be considered future changes. So what do we mean by immediate and future changes? To help understand these changes even further, here's a timeline for each. Immediate changes are changes that you and your team can implement as soon as this webinar is complete. Future changes can probably take place between 6 months to a year from now, depending on how large the project is. Some projects, or the size of your company, may even push dates out past 1 year. So let's begin with immediate changes. Here are the topics we consider immediate changes. Training. Training has the potential to be the most profound benefit to your organization's bottom line. With training, employees can better utilize current software to cut down time and not duplicate efforts, follow procedures that have been put in place to fix efficiency gaps of the past, and follow compliance guidelines and keep you from failing audits and costing you fines. Employee feedback tools. Employee feedback will help engage customers and help managers understand what's working and what's not working for your employees within the company. Negotiating better vendor contracts. Prices typically come down as technology ages. Right-sizing your data. Are you paying to store people's personal photos? Acknowledging hitting IT spending impacts. Find those budget surprises that may have caught you in the past. Leveraging current system investments. Are you getting all the efficiencies you can? And then finally, consolidating incidentals, a few suggestions on overlooked items that we can cut. We're going to start with training don'ts. Although cutting training seems like it would yield you fastest results, it would lead to long-term weaknesses and more inefficiencies and higher costs. Don't assume someone will show the rest of the team how something should be done. Don't assume that even after training is complete, that you won't still have some people confused and need additional help. Don't assume people will take as much pride in their work as you expect them to. Everyone works to get things done quickly, but is it done properly? Assuming that on-the-job training will be sufficient as a major mistake we see companies making. Chances are your employees are doing their job the only way they know how, which will make it not the best cost-effective or use of time. Don't depend solely on a power presentation. Ask questions, encourage participation, provide one-on-one attention. Solely lecturing or presenting will ensure your audience will tune out and lose interest. And, as we all know, if you aren't paying attention, the training is a waste of your time and theirs. And unfortunately, we see people wing it. We've seen this time and time again. Please don't wing your training. Some people think, I do this every single day. I don't need to prepare. And it's just not true. Being prepared allows you to iron out any kinks or prepare for any questions that your audience may have. Training dues. All positions in all lines of business should receive training consistently, whether it's before a new product launch, quarterly, or yearly. We at Revolution Group recommend quarterly training on your own internal processes. To have successful training, you need executive buy-in. If your leadership team doesn't believe in creating and maintaining a formal program, then it will not be successful in the long run. Accountability. Managers need to be held accountable for ensuring that their employees are following the company guidelines. A good program focuses not only on product guidelines, but internal processes as well. Appoint leaders. Someone needs to be the point person or owner of the training program, regardless of the size of your company. If you're a larger company, then you may want to hire a full-time person to take on their responsibility. If you're a smaller company, then the training program might become part of a current employee's role. Develop collateral. Having a written handout or entire guidebook is beneficial to employees so they can have something to reference. Time passes and people forget to have the reminders at their fingertips. Helps increase adoption to success. The other side of having collateral means if you change policy or procedure, you'll need to collect or void all previous versions and replace them with new versions. This can be cumbersome depending on your collateral. However, we feel being able to have tangible training guide in front of each employee is well worth it. Maintenance. Maintaining the training and communication is what's going to be the key to success. Having training once is great, but will not help you lower costs in the long run if you're not staying consistent. Have a simple quiz at the end of each training session. Gives you a tangible way to measure the team understands the content. What should be included in the training notes? Mapped out internal processes. Everyone understanding how things work always increases productivity and lowers cost. Everyone understanding how things work also eliminates double entry. This can and should include applicable system training. If you want your customer service product to be standard and consistent, every time you need to establish service guidelines. These guidelines should be communicated internally and have routine team training. If you're regulated by things like HIPAA or PCI, bring highlighted handouts of the guidelines as a must. Also remember, having a policy monitoring system in place to ensure the training has been effective. This doesn't need to be formal, or it can be if you prefer, but checking on how well your employees are adapting to the training will tell you how to tweak or strengthen your training going forward. Employee feedback tool. As culture is becoming the hottest topic in business, most CEOs are bending over backwards to make their company a great place to work. They understand how important employee retention is, and if your employee is unhappy, they will not stay. Studies continually show that keeping an employee is significantly less expensive than acquiring and training a new employee. If you start asking employees what works for them and what doesn't work for them, their opinion will feel valued. Just as customer feedback has transformed the customer experience, employee feedback is transforming the employee experience. So type of employee feedback tools that can be from complex to simple. SurveyMonkey, this is a tool that we regularly use at Revolution Group. We send out internal SurveyMonkey questionnaires after every work-sponsored event to gauge employee satisfaction and to determine if existing policies and practices are still helpful and valid to those who use them. Or you could do an intranet site. If you have an internal website or a SharePoint site or even Salesforce, you can make surveys out of these tools with little effort. Or if nothing else, you can solicit feedback from your teams with a simple email questionnaire. The benefits of employee feedback tools: learn how they're using the resources that you have. This will provide you the tools with lots of information about your employees' day-to-day activities. You may find that they do not even use a system that's costing you money every month. You may also find They do not have the right tools needed to complete their job properly, and therefore the job is taking longer to complete and is not being completed accurately. Ask your employees about their current systems. Are there key features missing that a competing system can provide? Ask an employee who uses these systems every day will provide you the most accurate information instead of assuming the system must be working because they haven't said anything to you about it and the work's getting completed. This is one of our favorite cost-saving avenues. It involves your employees and it makes them feel valued, and you're able to make all of your systems efficient. Although making the changes to these findings from the employee feedback tool may be more of a long-term change, you can implement the feedback tool itself immediately. From these results alone, you can cancel unused services, identify inefficiencies, and purchase hardware and software necessary for your employees to be more productive. Inter-office communication. Is your company set up in a vertical management style, or is it more horizontal? Are your lines of communication clear and concise so employees know where to turn if they need help? Are employees appreciating their co-workers' opinions and skill sets? Asking employees about communication within the office can bring about some issues that can be fixed to create a more conducive and effective environment. For example, employees who are under one manager may provide information that they are not being properly trained. You'll then be able to take that information and provide constructive feedback to the manager and provide the training necessary to make those employees more productive. Forecasting technology needs. Continue to ask your managers about employees and about big projects coming down the pipeline. Having a good grasp on what the future holds can save you time, money, and stress. Please note, when you're asking for feedbacks and opinions, it won't be all the things you want to hear. Some of it will be negative, and if you don't prepare yourself, it can have a negative effect on your goals. For example, if you ask your employees about upper management and 4 out of 5 write that upper management seems unapproachable and therefore new ideas and concepts are not being shared, it is easy, if you're in upper management, to take that personally. Instead, you should gather the information, do your best to break the stereotypes, and change some of the ways that your management team have been doing things. Another important note is that to feel like they can speak freely without repercussions or negative discourse. Be sure not to share employees' responses with their peers or directly confront them on things they said during feedback. It will only make them feel that they can actually provide feedback to the benefit of the company. Negotiate better contracts annually. If there's one thing CIOs agree on, it's maintenance fees. They're a great value for the money. The upgrades that fees entitle you to provide the right solution at the right time. In fact, most CIOs write that yearly check with a smile. Oh, and pigs fly. Most CIOs dread them, actually. Yet, they know they're unavoidable, like death and taxes. Vendor contracts to renegotiate. Your ISP or your internet service provider, each time your term is up for your internet or your phone lines, you should compare prices. Long distance rates and bandwidth prices are always coming down. So each time that those get renewed, price shop them. Copier and printer prices. Like all technology, these prices per page should come down. Or there may be new features that you could get for the same cost you're paying today. Backup services. Backup services cost less now than they did a few years ago, and those prices continue to drop as the market becomes more saturated with backup solution providers. Make sure, though, when negotiating vendor contracts, you don't want to sacrifice quality when trying to lower your costs. Not all the backups are created equal. Shop your warranties. Third-party warranties are becoming more common and can be a better price than from the actual manufacturer. In recent years, we've seen better response from third-party warranty providers than we see some of the large manufacturers offer. Talk to your managed service provider account manager to ensure you're still getting the quality product and service that your company requires. Ongoing maintenance costs. These are inevitable and important in that they will entitle you to upgrades and support. However, most vendor contracts stipulate the ability to raise the annual rate with no limit. Make sure you limit the vendor's ability to do that by at least trying to increase to something. Try to negotiate no cost for the first 2 or 3 renewals and cap it after that. Lease terms. Most software maintenance agreements are written such that annual maintenance renews automatically unless the customer is given written notice to the contrary. It is a good idea to negotiate automatic renewals out of the agreement. Negotiating terms under which maintenance can be canceled should be addressed. The most optimal scenario would be the ability to cancel for convenience, but short of that, specific circumstances allow for cancellation for non-performance should be defined. Service levels. Whenever possible, service level agreements should be specifically negotiated into the contract, including consequences for non-performance. This will minimize the misunderstanding down the road and create an appropriate incentive for the vendor to perform. Right-sizing your data. IT experts claim that the global volume of electronically stored data is doubling every 2 years, and as more businesses are going digital, the increase in the volume is driving improved efficiency and cost-effective storage and data management tools. Server hard drives come in different speeds and sizes, and the amount of hard drives that can fit inside a server is finite. There could be a case where you need to replace all of your drives with larger drives to get the more space you need if you don't want to invest in an external storage device. The more data you have, the more you're backing up, the longer it takes to back up that data. At times, this conflict with the jobs that the server runs after hours, making the backup job itself run longer than maintenance window allows for. The more data you back up, the longer it takes to back that data up. At times, this can conflict with the job the server runs after hours to make the backup job itself run longer than your maintenance windows allow for. To fix this, you may need a faster backup solution entirely. Too much data can really hurt your off-site storage costs. The obvious is that the more data you have, the more it will cost to back it up. The not so obvious is that you may need a faster internet connection to upload the data to the cloud before your maintenance window closes. Sometimes that could even exceed 24 hours. So yesterday's backup is not done and you're now starting today's backup. The solution is to audit. If your organization is over 10 years old, chances are so is some of your data. Do you truly need that spreadsheet from that project you did 8 years ago? Better yet, is it worth paying a monthly fee to back it up and store it? During audits, we find large amounts of personal videos and pictures being stored on the servers and then backed up. I once reclaimed a large server amount of storage when I found someone had hours and hours of videos of their horse on the server. Performing this audit can also be a good time to ensure who has access to sensitive information. Did someone move out of accounting but still has access to accounting folders? These are the things that an audit can uncover. Acknowledge hidden IT spending impacts. Let's discuss some of the common places we see unexpected spending happen. Who has the purchasing power? Gartner estimates that more than 10% of the corporate technology spending occurs in the business units, beyond the control of IT. If employees have the ability to buy technology for your company without being a member of the IT team, you could have issues. They could purchase the wrong technology because they don't have IT involved, and this can result in a wasteful spend. This typically leads to having to repurchase the right thing later on. Here's an example of what I've seen in the past. Someone purchases a laptop for their department without going through IT. They just go to Best Buy and buy it, and they buy it with a home version of the operating system, only to find out later that it cannot join your company's network, and, even worse, it cannot be encrypted. In this scenario, you have compliances and regulations could be broken, so to resolve it, you either have to spend additional money to upgrade the operating system or replace the laptop entirely. Have you included all costs in your IT budget? Business units' sponsored systems eventually become the responsibility of IT, increasing the cost of support and maintenance portion of your budget. Are there projects going on for other departments that will eventually need IT involvement? It's always better to be involved during the planning phase. Architectural pollution from rogue projects can result in cost overruns and blown budgets. Reinstatement fees. If you're new to IT budgets, you'll be surprised at all the maintenance fees you'll need to contend with. Even more surprising is the cost to reinstate a warranty or a maintenance contract once you let them lapse. Tracking these warranties and maintenance contracts are an important part of staying on top of your budget. Here are a few ways to cut down on these hidden expenditures. Flat organizational models tend to be more difficult to rein in, and control as opposed to vertical models. Keeping cost-controlling policies in mind as you create new organizational verticals, clearly identify the process and make technology purchases. Remove selected IT outsourcing, in which a department within your company will independently decide it doesn't need to participate in overall enterprise architecture to fulfill its departmental mission. Your IT department should be a support center that helps each department achieve their goals. Make sure you know what each department is planning to help you forecast. Remember, your IT budget should not be created in a vacuum. Our final piece of advice on this topic is to increase your review period. Go back at least 3 years when you're looking to put this year's budget in place. The reasoning is simple. We often sign 2 or 3 year contracts for things, and you could be hit in July of 2017 for the renewal of something you bought in July of 2014, thus blowing your budget again. Leverage current system investments. As we mentioned before, typically people do not use their entire application functionality. Because of this, they buy a second product for a feature that their original product already performs. So by investing into your training on your current systems, you can save money on duplicate products as well as gain productivity. These costs of turning on modules of existing software are often cheaper than purchasing a standalone product to do the same task. There are several ways to get training on your system. They range from instructor-led to YouTube videos. Make sure you stay current on your applications. There are often features added during updates that can increase productivity that you've been missing out on. If you have a web-based application, often these upgrades will be automatic, but if your software is on your own server, it's a manual process, and updates get pushed off until later because of the effort involved. A simple way to find out is ask your IT team, are we on the latest version of our main application? And finally, if you have 2 separate systems already, ask if there's integration between them. If there's not, we often find duplicate efforts where people are putting the same information into both systems. If there's integration between them, common data is shared between the applications automatically. Future changes. Now are the things that may not be as quick to implement, but I'll cover mobility, controlling the cost of your remote workforce, discretionary cuts, are your staffing dollars effective, and are you still paying for yesterday's technology, and economies of scale. We will discuss how to save money with upgrades and have scheduled for this year. Cost estimation truths, how budgetary quotes can affect your budget, and pricing chargeback mechanisms. People spend less when it comes out of their specific budget. So mobility. Phone systems can have some interesting ways that they can save you on cost, depending on how your network or your organization is structured. For example, if you have multiple locations, there are ways to utilize your network to reduce long-distance calls. If you have an office in Columbus and an office in Dallas, you can configure some phone systems to route your calls through your network and place calls in Dallas as if they were a local call to you here in Columbus. So if you're geographically dispersed, this is definitely worth looking into. Field employee devices. Do your people in the field, be it service people or salespeople, actually need a full laptop? Often they can do what they need to do on a tablet like an iPad. These cost less than laptops and are easier to maintain. And in my experience, I've seen clients replace their entire sales team laptop with iPads, and their productivity actually increased. It became easier for them to enter their product orders on the go instead of waiting until they got back to the hotel that evening and placing multiple orders from earlier that day. Are you providing cell phones to your employees, or are you letting them expense them? There could be a savings if you provide phones due to group discounts. This can be an easy thing to figure out ahead of time. Review your expenses for reports from last year. See how many people claim their cell bill on their expense reports. Then see what the average monthly cost was. Armed with these 2 numbers, you can call each of the big 3 cell providers and see what kind of deals you can get. Do you use mobile device management through Office 365? Although this is not a cost saving, it can give you further control over your corporate contacts and emails. Discretionary cuts. Making discretionary cuts are not always the easiest choice, but will make your company more efficient and effective in the long run. Your staffing budget. Are you getting the biggest impact of your salary dollars? Do you have people performing tasks that could be contracted out? Often, you can outsource certain services for less than what you could pay a single salary to perform this task. Employee skill sets. Your workers should be skilled workers that can affect your bottom line. You've heard it before, but make sure you have everyone in the right seat on the bus. This will, in itself, increase efficiencies and productivity. Old technology. Audit your bills for reoccurring services with the appropriate team members. For example, did you remove a fax machine years ago only to find out you're still paying for the phone line today? Or did you change security companies and you're still paying the old company to monitoring fees? These are small expenses, and that's why they often get overlooked, but they can add up over time. Economies of scale. I often say, happen to your network instead of your network happening to you. Replacing your equipment before it dies is a way to accomplish this. When you're scrambling to get a replacement part or a whole new server because of a failure, you're at the mercy of what's in stock, not what's the best price. So with this in mind, we should replace your equipment before it fails. This will allow you to shop for the best prices and allows you to choose when to replace it, like during your slow season if you have one. There are often savings when upgrading multiple parts of infrastructure. For example, if you could do everything in one outage window and reduce the number of on-site visits to your consultants, which could reduce cost. Replace your equipment service contracts before they expire or before the technology is outdated. If you hold on to technology until you're forced to upgrade to the latest version, it can often be at a higher cost. For example, upgrading to Office 365 from a recent version of Exchange is easier. Here that has less hours to perform, and therefore cheaper to upgrade than the older version of Exchange. This is true of several pieces of technology. Understand IT cost estimation truths. Estimates at times can be dangerous to your budget. The person giving you the quote will often not have all the details they need to give you an exact number, especially when they're asked to just give them a budgetary number. They will try to estimate all the steps and give you an idea of cost, but too often they say a lower cost than the project will take out of fear that the stakeholder will say no to the project or the original cost if the original cost is too high. At Revolution Group, we strive to give quotes that are at the top end of what we believe the project will cost. Understanding budgetary quotes, people ask for budgetary quotes, which gets translated to a rough estimate. Most people don't spend the right amount of time to encompass everything involved in a rough estimate, so the quotes are off. When these quotes are off, it usually blows up your timeline and your budget. It's important to understand what causes overruns. To avoid them, ask questions like, what could change the effort involved in this project? Or, are there any concerns you have that make this project larger than we discussed? This starts the dialogue and helps keep everyone's expectations aligned. A good consulting firm will try to understand your budgets and common overruns, so when there's a quote given, it's not too low. And remember, it's always best to come in too high than too low when trying to plan out your budget. Implement pricing and chargeback mechanisms. Large organizations charge departments with credit costs to the departments that use it the most. This will take some time to track accurate numbers to ensure you have the appropriate distribution costs and services. If you decide to use a chargeback mechanism, you'll want to regularly check to make sure that distribution has not swayed from your original breakdown. This will often reduce in waste because it holds departments accountable for their actual spending and will help them reevaluate if their current processes need to be changed in order to cut costs. I've seen situations where printing in color required a departmental code, which would allow the accounting department to charge departments for how much they were printing and using the expensive ink. Within the first couple of months, the cost they were paying for in color toner dropped by more than half. If you're a small to mid-sized company, this new process can not only help you control costs in 2017, but will position you for your organization's growth to come. What's next? This concludes today's webinar, and hopefully there are a few suggestions that resonated with you. Your next step should be to take your notes from topics that stood out to you and work with your IT team to implement. If you did not take any notes, don't fret. As Molly said in the beginning, we will post a recording of this webinar online shortly, and you can skip to the sections that interested you the most. As always, feel free to reach out to us, and if you would like assistance implementing these changes. Thank you for attending, and make it a great day.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Thank you all for attending. We hope you got valuable information on ways to control your costs in 2017. Gary, before we go, it looks like we have a couple of questions that came in, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Okay. First question. Of all the changes mentioned, what do you believe will have the largest impact? So of everything that you spoke about in your presentation, future and immediate changes, what do you see having the largest impact?
Employee involvement, hands down, both from the training and from the feedback tools. Your employees know the things that are working and are not working, so getting them involved, but with knowing how the processes work is going to help you a lot, and then training them on using your systems to its fullest. So tackle this most by going after the employee portion of it.
Okay, great. Second, when we right size our data, do we have options for our old data other than just to purge it?
Absolutely. There's several ways you can archive your data and remove it from your storage and your backups without losing it. But this depends on how your systems are set up and how your backups are currently set up. So talk with your internal IT people or with your managed service provider and talk about ways to archive. That's the key phrase you want to know here. There's a difference between backing up and archiving. So talk with your team about how you can archive this old data.
Okay. You mentioned replacing our hardware on a schedule. How often should I replace my servers?
That's an important question. I think we did a blog on this not too long ago. That depends on their functionality, but typically we see servers last 5 years, desktops 4 years, and the batteries inside your UPSs or your battery backups, we see those be replaced every 3 years. So those are some loose guidelines for you to understand how long your equipment should last.
Okay, great. And since we got that question in, when we send out this webinar at the conclusion of this webinar, in an email, we will include that blog on how often you should replace your servers for a little bit more in-depth information.
Perfect.
We had one more we have a couple more questions that came in. This one's pretty basic. It says, why should I outsource my IT needs?
In general, anytime you have internal staff, you want them working on things that can affect your bottom line. So you'll have employees that are geared towards your line of business. And if you take that employee who knows how to work in your company and have them fix a printer that a kid fresh off the street from DeVry can come in and do, that's a waste of that resource. You want the appropriate resource on the right thing. So by outsourcing to an IT company, we can focus on the regular mundane stuff that we don't have to know to maintain your organization and keep your employees more productive.
Awesome. I think that's, oh wait, nope. So you this is another kind of general question about our IT team. When you speak of managed service providers, what's different than just a help desk? That's one of the questions that just came in.
Right. So in IT, being the help desk is the most commoditized part of outsourcing your IT. Fixing your desktops, fixing your printers, working on the servers, keeping them up. You often want an IT partnership that also can help you with strategic planning. They can help you with the budget, as we're talking about today. If you have a strategic partner, they should help you with the 2017 budget, and they can, excuse me, and they can help you identify areas that you can cut costs.
Okay, great.
It's getting choked up.
All right, thank you, everybody. That's going to conclude our webinar. And again, we will be sending out the recording in an email